welcome to the silent disco, which I wasn't expecting, so I'll try not to shout at you. I am Nicola, as he said, the Countess of Cocoa, and I'm going to let you into a little secret about me today. When I was 13, I made my first ever email address, and it was a Hotmail one. It was nickloves, L-U-V-S, chocolate.@hotmail.co.uk. So I think it's fair to say that it was fate that eventually I would end up working for a chocolate company. But not just any old chocolate company. We are a chocolate company with a big vision. Our vision is 100% slave-free chocolate, not just our chocolate, but all chocolate worldwide. And that is the only reason that we exist. We're an impact company that makes chocolate, and not just a chocolate company that makes impact. And that's a really important distinction. So while it's common practice for chocolate bars to be straight and square, the truth is actually that the world of cocoa and chocolate is unequally divided. And that's why our bars are too. It's the #1 complaint that we get on Ocado that our bars are really hard to eat. And it's really hard to share equally, right? Someone always gets the big Tony's piece, someone always gets the small corner piece, but our bar is a physical representation of the problem in chocolate. And until the chocolate industry is more equally divided, our bars will stay unequally divided. Now this shows you where the problem in chocolate comes from. On the left-hand side here, you've got 2.5 million cocoa farmers and their families living and working in West Africa. On the right-hand side, you've got billions of chocolate lovers and eaters like all of us, mostly in the Western world. And in the middle, you've got just 7 big chocolate companies that own all of the world's chocolate production. And they're profit-making companies. So it's in their best interest to keep profits for shareholders really, really high, and therefore the price that they pay for cocoa really, really low. And in our view, they keep it inhumanely low. And that results in those 2.5 million farmers and their families living in systemic poverty. So these are the 2 countries, Ivory Coast and Ghana, on the equator, where it's perfect conditions for growing cocoa. And that's where 60% of the world's cocoa comes from. So if you think of any big chocolate company or bar that you would pick up in the supermarket, the likelihood is that they have bought their cocoa from those 2 small countries. It's 2.5 million farmers living and working on those farms. And there's also 1.56 million children working illegally on those cocoa farms. And 95% of them are doing what's classed as hazardous work. So that is kids carrying heavy sacks of cocoa that are bigger than themselves, using dangerous pesticides, wielding machetes, and basically doing a lot of work and not going to school. And in the worst cases, there's at least 30,000 instances of what's classed as modern slavery. So that is kids being trafficked from neighboring countries like Burkina Faso, promised that they would be able to work on a cocoa farm and earn money to send back to their families. But they are obviously not paid, not looked after, and living in modern slavery conditions. And there's also a lot that just never make it back to their families. And this is all a result of chocolate companies not paying enough for their cocoa. Now, you would think if there's only 7 big companies that control all of the world's cocoa production, that it would be an easy fix, right? Only 7 companies have to get together and do something about it. So that's what these guys thought back in 2001. Harkin and Engel, 2 American senators. They campaigned for all of these 7 chocolate companies, the CEOs, to sign up to the Harkin-Engel Protocol, which basically meant that they were saying that they would eradicate the worst forms of illegal child labor from their supply chains by 2005. Now, what happened was it was meant to be legislation, but it ended up being more of self-regulation, and we know that doesn't work. So they basically got to sign up to something and say they were going to do it, but there was no legal kind of punishment or anything if they didn't sign up to it. So 2005 came and went, 2011 another extension, 2015, And then 2020, nearly 20 years after the first protocol was signed last year, a report comes out to say that there's still 1.56 million children working illegally on those cocoa farms. So absolutely nothing has changed. Now, the story of Coney's starts with the Hagen-Engel Protocol too. So back in 2005, a team of journalists was making a TV show and documentary about the myths and facts that they wanted to myth bust in the food and drink industry. They were looking into chocolate and wanted to investigate, hey, it's 5 years later, this deadline is coming up. What's actually happened? And they realized nothing had changed. So they decided to dig a little deeper, and they wanted to interview and talk to all the world's biggest chocolate companies. So they called them up and wanted to have them on the show. None of them would speak to them. So they decided to make a bit more noise about this issue and thought more people should find out about it. So they decided to try and get Teun, one of the Dutch journalists, put into prison for being a chocolate criminal. So what they did was Teun flew to the Ivory Coast, interviewed a couple of kids that had actually been rescued from being slaves on cocoa farms, got them to write testimonials about what they'd experienced. And then Teun came back to Amsterdam and filmed himself eating 15 different chocolate bars on camera. And then he called the police and said, you need to arrest me because I am financing child slavery. And obviously the person at the end of the phone just laughed and thought, that's ridiculous. Like, don't worry, you can eat chocolate, it's fine. But they didn't want that to be the last that they made of this noise. So they actually hired a lawyer to get Teun put into prison, which is a bit of a weird brief for a lawyer. And it ended up being a 2-year court case. I actually went to court, and one of the boys that Teun had interviewed and got a testimonial from flew over to Amsterdam to testify against him in court. Now, the judge ultimately decided that they couldn't put Teun into prison because then they'd have to put everybody who eats chocolate into prison. And also, they couldn't show that the beans that were in the bars that he ate were farmed by the boy that was testifying against him. So it's a bit of a technicality. But what it did do was raise a lot of awareness and get a lot of press attention in the Netherlands and Amsterdam for the issue. So loads more people were aware of slavery in the chocolate industry. But that still wasn't enough for this team of journalists. So they decided to create something that would endure, a message that would keep going and keep reminding people that there's this problem that exists and we need to fix it. And that's when the first bar of Tony's Chocolonely was born. It was intended to be the world's first slave-free chocolate bar, but back then that just meant fair trade. That was as good as you could get. They called it Tony's. That was the international name for Teun. And Chocolonely because it was his lonely fight against inequality in the chocolate industry, because none of the big chocolate companies wanted to work with him on it. They made 5,000 chocolate bars, which sold out within 2 hours in one day in Amsterdam. And they very quickly made another 8,000 more. And that was back in 2005, so we're 15 years old today. We love this quote from Anita Roddick, who started The Body Shop, because we really see ourselves as the mosquito in the room of the chocolate industry. We are loud, we are annoying, we punch above our weight, and we are not going away anytime soon. And we really are the mosquito. So at the moment, we buy about 8,000 tons of cocoa. Mondelez buys 400,000 tons of cocoa. So we are tiny. But we're #1 market share in the Netherlands. So we are the biggest chocolate company in the Netherlands, above Milka, who's owned by Mondelez. And we've also, only up until recently, never spent a penny of above-the-line marketing. And this is the best-sold chocolate bar in the Netherlands. You'll all know it. If you know Tony's, the orange one, the caramel sea salt, is also the 4th best-selling chocolate bar, or fastest-selling chocolate bar in the UK now. And we've only been here for 2.5 years. So definitely punching above our weight. So that's a bit about the issue and how Tony started. But what are we actually doing to change the industry? It all boils down to this, our 5 sourcing principles. We've been developing these since 2012, and we now think we've cracked the code. If you have all 5 of these sourcing principles in your chocolate supply chain, you have the best chance of eradicating illegal child labor and modern slavery from it. Starts with traceability. 100% traceability, knowing where your beans come from. Most big chocolate companies just buy from this big anonymous pile of commodity beans. We trade directly with 7 cooperatives and over 8,000 farmers in Ghana and Ivory Coast every year. We know their names, we know their faces, and we trade with them as equal business partners in our supply chain. Taking responsibility is really important. Secondly, we pay a higher price. As I mentioned at the start, these farmers are living in systemic poverty because people don't pay enough for their cocoa. We pay the government farm gate price, we pay the fair trade premium, but that still isn't enough for these farmers to earn a living income. So we bridge that gap with a voluntary Tony's premium, and that shifts. So if the farm gate price goes down, the Tony's premium goes up. So all the farmers that we work with know that they're earning that price for as long as they trade with Tony's. Thirdly, we go for the long term. So we work with these farmers and their cooperatives for at least 5 years. And what that does is give them security of income. Normally, farmers might not know how much cocoa of their yield they're going to sell each year, and they might have to drop the price and end up making a lot less. We guarantee the price for at least 5 years so they can invest in new cocoa trees that take 5 years to bear fruit, or in upgrading their agricultural machinery. They tell us that that is actually even more important than paying a higher price. Fourthly, we work with cooperatives, so strong farmers. They're stronger when they're organized together in a cooperative and they have more buying power. And then finally, we work with them on farming practices to help them improve quality and productivity and maximize the income that they can make from their farms. So this is everything we're doing, and we say that you have to have all 5, no cherry picking. Some companies do a little, 1 or 2 of these, but you have to have all 5 for it to work. And this is what we're doing to eradicate illegal labor and modern slavery from our supply chain. But like I said, we're tiny. So how are we actually changing the whole industry? This is our roadmap to 100% slave-free chocolate. Starts with creating awareness. So me telling you today that there is slavery in the chocolate industry so that you can make a conscious choice. We're leading by example, proving that it can be done. You can be successful, delicious, market-leading, profitable chocolate company that sources from West Africa. So if we can do it, why can't they? And thirdly, and most importantly, we want to inspire people to act. Inspire you guys to choose differently when you're at the chocolate fixture. Inspire retailers to source differently and interrogate their suppliers. Inspire governments to change legislation, and ultimately put enough pressure on the biggest chocolate companies so that they have to change the way that they source their cocoa. And that's the only way that we're going to change the whole industry. So now on to the stuff you want to hear about, really, the marketing stuff. We're pretty unique in what we do marketing-wise at Tony's as well. While corporate and marketing theory would tell you recency, reach, scream, shout, put your brand in front of as many people as possible, we do things a little bit differently. So while they shout, we whisper. And when they push their message onto you, and it's quite annoying sometimes, we would rather pull you into us to have a conversation and give you the knowledge that you can then go and tell other people our story about. So we do that mostly through earned and owned media. We do things to drive PR, we launch amazing MPD, we do talks like this, we build a community on social media, and we do a shitload of sampling. And I think some people in FMCG in particular don't use their product enough. I'd say actually our product is our #1 marketing channel. So like I said, we use every inch of our product to tell our story. The unequally divided bar, the map of West Africa that's hidden on the bottom left corner, the packaging that tells you about our mission so that if you didn't know about it when you picked it up, you do once you've bought the bar. We do loads of MPD to always continue to surprise and delight our Choco fans. And ultimately, our chocolate has to be delicious because people do not want to compromise on taste for ethics. So even if you don't care about slavery in the chocolate industry, if you buy our chocolate bar just because it's delicious, you're still fueling our mission, and that's the beauty of it. Visibility has always been really key for us at launch. Our beautiful rainbow wrappers lend themselves really well to standing out on shelf. This is going to get a little bit trickier with HFSS coming in next year, but we're just going to have to get a bit more creative. We're building our community on social media. We reply to every single message. We love having conversations with our Choco fans on email, on the phone, on social media as well. And that turns them into our biggest brand advocates. And then finally, we invest in things called impactful encounters. So experiential and events that bring people to us so we can educate them about the issue and then give them the tools to go away and tell other people about it. Because when you're not really doing paid media, word of mouth is your marketing strategy. And this is what it kind of comes down to. We share our chocolate, and we ask you to share our chocolate and share our story. We want to recruit Choco fans, who then become our serious friends. So hands up if you've ever gifted a bar of Tony's, posted about us on social media, yeah, exactly. You're all Tony's serious friends already, doing my job, thank you very much. And then we also have serious friends forever. Those are the people that reply to every message or Instagram story that we put out, that buy every single NPD, that gift us for Christmas, that tell other people about us, and even get tattoos of Tony's on their legs. And this is an example of something we did this year that was all about generating that noise. So off the back of the NORC report I mentioned, so 1.56 million children still working illegally, 20 years after those big chocolate companies said they were going to eradicate it. We thought, well, if they're finding it so hard, like, we have the sweet solution. We know what they need to do. So let's show them physically that it's possible. So we launched 4 of these bars. We replicated 4 of the world's best chocolate bars, but we made it with Tony's chocolate according to our sourcing principles. Now, these were meant to be on shelf for 3 weeks in the UK in February. They were only there for a day. You can read in the press why. But we still got them out to people through our websites, and it generated loads of press, loads of chat on social media, and ultimately we got 65,000 signatures for our petition to change the law to actually make it punishable to have illegal child labor in your supply chain. So they might not have been on the shelves for very long, but they created tons of buzz, but big chocolate companies have still done nothing. They haven't taken us up on the offer. So we brought these bars back. They now look like normal Tony's bars. You'll find them at independent stores, and we're going to keep them as part of our range until the big chocolate companies copy us. So guys, I'm just going to leave you with this because my job's done. Once you now know that there's slavery in the chocolate industry, you're aware, and you are responsible for your action and also for your inaction. Are you ready to change the chocolate industry with me?